7 years into my marriage, my husband came home with a look in his eyes I'd never seen before. He slammed his laptop in front of me and said, "What is this?" On the screen, 30 videos, me and my ex. Everything I had refused to do with my husband, everything I had always said no to. My heart stopped, but I didn't stay silent. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You never deserved it." And that was just the beginning. Hey everyone, welcome back to Heartstring Stories, where we share real stories that touch your heart, stories that reflect the reality of life. Today's story, this isn't some TV drama script. This is told from a woman's perspective, someone who accepted her mistakes, faced the consequences of her decisions, but also spoke her truth without hesitation. Before we dive into this intense story, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our emotional journeys. And if this story resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means everything to us. So let's get into it. My name is Rebecca, and for 7 years I thought I had built the perfect life. I met my husband David at a corporate conference. He was everything society told me I should want: successful, stable, respectful, well educated. He came from a good family. He had a solid career in finance. He was the kind of man your parents dream about. We dated for a year before he proposed. It was romantic, traditional, everything by the book. We got married in a beautiful ceremony with 200 guests. I wore my grandmother's veil. His vows made everyone cry. But here's what nobody tells you about building a life with someone: you can check all the boxes and still feel empty. Don't get me wrong, David was a good man. He worked hard, paid the bills on time, never raised his voice. We had a nice house in the suburbs, took vacations twice a year, hosted dinner parties where everyone complimented us on being the perfect couple. But perfect is exhausting. From the beginning, there was something missing: a spark, a passion, that raw, magnetic energy that makes you lose yourself in someone. With David, everything was comfortable, predictable, safe. And God help me, I was bored. He tried. I'll give him that. He'd plan date nights, surprise me with flowers, ask me what I wanted to try in the bedroom. But whenever things got close to that edge, that place where control gives way to complete abandon, I'd pull back. I'd say I wasn't comfortable, that it wasn't my thing, that I needed to take things slow. And he respected that every single time. That was David's biggest flaw, I realize now. He respected me too much to push, too much to demand, too much to awaken something wild in me. But before David, there was Marcos. Marcus was chaos wrapped in leather jackets and dangerous smiles. We met in college. He was the drummer in a local band. I was the straight A student who'd never broken a rule in her life. We were a disaster waiting to happen, and God, what a beautiful disaster it was. With Marcus, there were no rules, no boundaries, no careful conversations about comfort zones. He didn't ask permission. He took me to places I didn't even know existed within myself. We did everything, and I mean everything. Things I can't even say out loud without blushing. The kind of things that nice girls from good families don't admit to wanting. But I wanted them. With him, I wanted all of it. We recorded ourselves a lot. It started as his idea, but I loved it. There was something thrilling about watching ourselves, about seeing that wild, uninhibited version of me that only existed with him. We made 30 videos over 2 years, each one more intense than the last. Of course, it couldn't last. Marcus was never going to settle down. He was 23 and living like every day might be his last. When he got an opportunity to tour with a bigger band, he took it without hesitation. We ended things. It hurt, but I understood. We were never meant to be forever. We were meant to be a fire that burned bright and fast. I deleted my copies of the videos, moved on, started making better choices, met David. What I didn't know was that Marcus kept them on an old external hard drive in a box in his storage unit. A box that would explode my entire life 7 years later. Marriage to David was easy in all the ways that matter on paper. We both had careers. I worked in marketing, he was climbing the corporate ladder. We bought our first house after 2 years, started talking about kids after 5. Our sex life was fine, regular, gentle. He'd ask what I wanted, I'd say something vanilla, we'd both finish and go to sleep. Comfortable. But comfortable isn't the same as satisfied. He'd sometimes suggest trying new things. Maybe we could be more spontaneous, he'd say. What if we filmed ourselves just for us? And every time I'd shut it down. I'm not into that stuff, I'd tell him. That's not who I am. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I told myself I was different now. That wild girl with Marcus, she was young and stupid. I was a grown woman now, a wife, building a respectable life. I told myself that version of me didn't exist anymore. I told myself that lie so many times I almost believed it. David never pushed. He'd not say, okay, whatever you're comfortable with, and we'd go back to our scheduled, predictable intimacy. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me with this question in his eyes, like he was trying to figure out where the passion went, like he knew there was more to me than what I was showing him. But he never accused me, never demanded, never made me feel like I owed him anything. And maybe that was the problem. It was a Tuesday evening in March when everything fell apart. I was making dinner when David came home early. I heard the door slam, something he never did. When he walked into the kitchen, his face was white, his hands shaking. We need to talk, he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a folder. Inside that folder were 30 video files. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up right there. Marcus reached out to me on LinkedIn last week, David said, his voice eerily calm. Said he had something I needed to see, something about my wife's true nature. I thought it was spam, or maybe some scam, but curiosity got the better of me. He clicked on the first video. I couldn't watch, but I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was on there. I watched all 30, David continued, every single one. And you know what killed me? It wasn't just seeing you with another man, it wasn't even the things you were doing, things you've told me for 7 years you weren't interested in, things you've refused every time I've suggested them. He looked at me and I saw tears in his eyes. What killed me was seeing you smile, laugh, lose yourself completely. I've never seen you look at me the way you looked at him in these videos, never heard you make those sounds with me, never felt you give yourself over completely like that. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. Why? He asked. Just tell me why. Why was he worth that version of you but I'm not? And that's when something inside me snapped. Maybe it was 7 years of pretending. Maybe it was the shame of being exposed. Maybe it was just exhaustion from living a lie. But instead of apologizing, instead of begging forgiveness, I said the words that would end my marriage. Because you never deserved it. The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at me like I'd slapped him. What did you just say? You heard me, I said, and suddenly I couldn't stop. 7 years of buried truth came pouring out. You never deserved it, David. You never made me feel like that. You never pushed me, challenged me, made me lose control. You were always so damn respectful, so careful, so concerned with my comfort that you never once just took what you wanted. So this is my fault? His voice rose. Because I respected your boundaries? Because I believed you when you said certain things weren't your thing? No, I was crying now. It's not your fault, it's mine. But you want the truth? Here it is. With Marcus, I felt alive, dangerous, desired in a way that made me forget my own name. With you, I feel safe, secure, comfortable. And that's a bad thing? It's not a bad thing, it's just not enough. It was never enough, but I tried to make it enough because you're good for me. Because everyone told me you were the right choice. Because I wanted to be the kind of woman who chooses stability over chaos. David's jaw clenched. So our entire marriage has been you settling? 7 years of you pretending to be someone you're not? Yes, I whispered. I'm sorry, but yes. He closed the laptop slowly. Why did you marry me if this is how you felt? Because I thought I could change. I thought I could become the woman you deserved. I thought the wild part of me was just immaturity and I'd grow out of it. But you didn't. No, I just buried it. And every time you asked me to try something new, every time you wanted more passion, I said no because admitting I wanted those things would mean admitting I'd been lying to you from the start. And Marcus? David's voice was ice. Why did he send me those videos after all these years? I shook my head. I don't know. Revenge? Chaos? Maybe he heard through mutual friends that I was married and decided to blow up my life for fun. That's who Marcus is. Was, David corrected. who Marcus was, because clearly that's who you wanted, not the man who loved you, respected you, built a life with you. You wanted the guy who treated you like an object for his camera. That's not fair. Fair? David laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? I spent 7 years trying to understand you, trying to make you happy, respecting every boundary you set, and now I find out those boundaries were lies, that you've spent our entire marriage comparing me to your ex and finding me lacking. He stood up. I'm going to a hotel. I can't even look at you right now. David, wait. No, he held up his hand. You've said enough, more than enough. He grabbed his keys and walked out. I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by the dinner I'd been making, and finally let myself break down completely. The next few weeks were hell. David stayed at his brother's place. We communicated only through text messages, mostly about logistics. He wanted a divorce. I didn't fight him on it. Word spread fast in our social circle. I don't know if David told people or if Marcus did, but suddenly everyone knew. The whispers, the stares, the friends who stopped returning my calls. I became that woman. The cheater, the liar, the wife who threw away a good marriage for memories of an ex. But here's what nobody understood. I hadn't cheated. Yes, I'd lied about my past, about my preferences, about who I really was, but I'd never been unfaithful during our marriage. Not that it mattered. In everyone's eyes, those videos were evidence of something worse than a simple affair. They were proof that I'd never truly been David's wife at all. My parents were devastated. My mother called me crying, asking how she'd raised a daughter capable of such deception. My father didn't call at all. I lost my job. Not officially for the scandal, but my boss suggested it might be better if I pursued other opportunities. Turns out having videos of your wild past circulating among your professional network is bad for business. I moved into a small apartment across town, spent my days applying for jobs and my nights replaying every decision that led me here. Was I wrong? Absolutely. I'd lied to David, built our marriage on a false foundation, denied him the truth of who I was. But was I wrong about what I said? That he never deserved that version of me? I'm still not sure. 3 months after everything imploded, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop. He looked the same, older, maybe a few more tattoos, but still that dangerous smile that used to make my heart race. Rebecca, he said, like we were old friends catching up. How have you been? I stared at him. You destroyed my life. You know that, right? He had the audacity to shrug. I gave your husband the truth. What you two did with that truth was your choice. Why? I demanded. Why now after all these years? Marcus leaned back. You really want to know? I saw your wedding photos on Facebook, saw you playing the perfect wife with your perfect husband in your perfect house. And I remembered the girl who used to lose herself in the moment, who didn't care about perfect or proper or any of that bull. I grew up, I said. No, he countered. You buried yourself. You became what you thought you should be instead of what you are. I did you a favor. A favor? You ruined my marriage. I exposed a lie. Your marriage ruined itself. You can't build something real on a foundation of pretending. I wanted to throw my coffee in his face, but instead I asked the question that had been haunting me. Did you ever love me? Or was I just another girl to add to your collection? For the first time, Marcus's smile faded. I loved the version of you that existed with me. Whether that was the real you or just another performance, I guess we'll never know. He stood up to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you figure out who you actually are someday. Not who you think you should be, not who your husband needed you to be. Just you. Then he was gone, leaving me with my cold coffee and far too many thoughts. That conversation haunted me for days. Was Marcus right? Had I ever actually been myself, or had I just been performing different versions depending on who I was with? With Marcus, I was wild and free. With David, I was proper and controlled. But which one was real? Or were both of them just roles I played? I started therapy. Dr. Chen was a straight shooter who didn't let me hide behind excuses. You keep talking about what these men wanted from you, she said during one session. But what do you want? Not what society expects, not what makes you look good, not what's safest. What does Rebecca actually want? I realized I didn't know. I'd spent so long reacting to what men expected of me that I'd never stopped to figure out my own desires. The wild sexual version of me with Marcus, that was real, but it was also performing for his camera, for his approval. The reserved, proper version with David, that was real too, but it was also performing for his family, his colleagues, his vision of a good wife. Who was I when nobody was watching, when there was no audience to please, no role to play? I had no idea. It was harder than I expected. Without a man to define myself against, I felt lost. But slowly, painfully, I started to find pieces of the real me. I liked quiet mornings with coffee and books. I also liked loud music and spontaneous dancing in my living room. I valued stability and routine. I also craved occasional chaos and adventure. I wanted respectful, loving partnership. I also wanted raw passion and intensity. I wasn't one thing or the other. I was all of it. The contradiction was the point, and I'd spent my entire adult life trying to hide that complexity, to fit myself into simpler boxes that other people could understand. 6 months after the explosion, David reached out. Can we meet? His text said, I think we need to actually talk, really talk. We met at a neutral place, a park bench overlooking the river where we used to walk when we were dating. He looked different, thinner, tired, but somehow more settled too. I've been in therapy, he said without preamble, trying to understand what happened, why it hurt so much. I'm sorry, I said, for lying to you, for not being honest about who I was. David nodded slowly. I'm sorry too. That surprised me. For what? That's not your fault. Yes, it is. Not entirely, but partially. He looked at me. You were wrong to lie, but I was wrong to never notice. In 7 years, I never once questioned why you were so different from other women I dated, why you never seemed to want more. I told myself you were just reserved, that you valued emotional connection over physical intensity. But the truth is, I didn't want to look deeper because I was afraid of what I'd find. Afraid of what? That I wasn't enough for you. That the real you would want things I couldn't give you. We sat in silence for a moment. The thing is, David continued, you were right. What you said that night, I never deserved that version of you. Not because I'm not worthy, but because that version wasn't genuine. It was you performing for someone else's approval. And what I wanted, what I thought I was getting, was the real you. I don't know if the real me exists, I admitted. I've been trying to figure it out. Maybe that's the problem, David said softly. Maybe we're all just different versions of ourselves depending on context, and there's no single real version. But the key is finding someone who makes you feel safe being all your versions, not just the acceptable ones. Is that philosophical way of saying we're over? I asked, trying to smile through tears. We were over the moment you said I never deserved you, David replied. But I don't want to hate you, Rebecca, and I don't want you to hate yourself. We were wrong for each other. That's sad, but it's also just true. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday in September. I signed the papers in a lawyer's office, walked out into the sunshine, and felt relief. Sadness too, but mostly relief. I got a new job at a smaller company that cared more about my skills than my scandal. Started dating casually, not looking for anything serious, just exploring what I actually liked without the pressure of performing. But I didn't regret the journey that followed, the painful process of figuring out who I actually was beneath all the roles I'd played. One day, my mom called. We'd been estranged since the divorce, but she wanted to talk. I've been thinking about what you said, she told me, about feeling like you had to be someone you weren't. And I realized I did that too. I performed good wife and good mother for so long that I forgot who I was underneath. Maybe I passed that pattern down to you without realizing it. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, maybe for the first time in my adult life. She told me about her own dreams she'd buried, her own desires she'd suppressed, her own versions of herself she'd hidden away, and I realized my story wasn't unique. So many women, so many people spend their lives contorting themselves into shapes that please others, forgetting their own edges and angles in the process. If you're still with me, thank you for listening to my story without judgment. I'm not proud of my choices. I hurt someone who loved me. I lied for years. I let shame and fear guide me instead of honesty and courage. But I've learned something through this painful journey. You cannot build authentic love on a foundation of pretending. You cannot create real intimacy while hiding your true self. And you cannot make someone right for you by becoming wrong for yourself. David deserved someone who wanted to give him everything without reservation. I deserved someone who made me feel safe being all of myself, not just the acceptable parts. We deserved the truth even when it was ugly. Today I'm single, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm figuring out who Rebecca actually is when she's not performing for anyone. And maybe that's where I should have started all along. So that's my story. The complete, messy, complicated truth of how my marriage ended and what I learned from the ruins. If this story resonated with you or if you faced similar struggles with authenticity in your relationships, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories matter too. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Heartstring Stories for more real, raw emotional journeys. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. Remember, you are allowed to be complicated. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to be all your versions without apology. Thank you for being here. Until next time, take care of your hearts.